Hello, Morlie. How are you? Thank you so much for joining our podcast.
Sure. Thanks for having me here. I am a breast imager. So that means I interpret, as my job, interpret mammograms mainly. I also look at ultrasounds and MRIs and work with patients who want to be screened for breast cancer and who may have breast cancer. In terms of my personal life, I'm married with two kids. Both my kids were adopted from China. They are 16 and 10 going on 11 years old.
Morlie, my name is Dan. It's a pleasure to meet you today, and I will be getting to know you along with our audience as we ask you various questions and as you answer those questions. And this interview is all about you. And the reason we've invited you on is because we like to have different guests with different backgrounds and different life experiences. So as you share with us your story, it will connect with different people in different ways. So you might say something that they've never heard before, or you might say something they've heard 5 different times before, but there's something about you that connects with them differently. And we have one overarching theme, and that is to help people live their best life. So in you just telling us how you live your best life, it'll help other people, hopefully give them some idea of how they could maybe take another step in the direction of living their best life. So where we like to start is with a question that we ask all of the people that Ivy and I are coaches. So we coach people, and we like to start with this question where we say, if I was a genie and I could just grant you one wish, what would be that wish for you and why? And I just want to give you a rule. The rule is you can't wish for more wishes, and you can't wish to become the genie, because I'm kind of cheating this question. And we're really trying to get after maybe something in your life that you once wanted, but maybe you thought, why try? Or maybe you tried and it didn't work out. Or maybe the odds were against you. So you said, yes, that'll just never happen. But I'm a genie, so I could grant you that wish. What would be that wish for you and why?
I would wish that I would get no more wishes anymore. Because I think, every kind of wish I thought of has a negative side. And that's kind of like with everything. Everything is, to me, is about like 50% positive, 50% negative. So whatever wish I would think I wanted, that possibly I would think would bring me happiness, would probably even bring me that much pain. But I just wouldn't even think of it that way. I think a lot of people, they think of something, well, a lot of people, I think, they're like, I'm unhappy. And then they think, well, what are the things I don't have? And if I had those things, I would be happy. But I think that that's a wrong sort of thinking, because actually those things, they already have everything they need to be happy, but they're thinking those outside things, if they could only obtain them, would bring happiness. But I don't think that's true. So I wouldn't want any other wishes, because I might fall into the trap of thinking that something that I think would bring me happiness, and I would wish for it, but then it would bring me some pain that I would not even have thought of.
That is a great answer. And I'm going to give you an out here, meaning this wish can be selfless, meaning you could wish for something that you could do for others and not about yourself.
Somehow, I don't know if this is true, but I think that, I might have the desire to make other people bypass the pain that they're in, but the pain that they're in actually has a purpose in their life. I may not see it, they may not see it, and they may not even see it until the end of life, or they may never see it. I don't know. I cured breast cancer, but I feel like the same percentage of people would be still suffering after I cured it.
This is interesting, and you probably already know this about yourself, but it seems as if there have to be a perfect answer for you to answer the question. And I will just let you know right now, all the questions we're going to ask you today do not have perfect answers. They have answers that there's always, in fact, the person that we had on our podcast before you was very keen to say the exact way you said it, which is everything comes with good and bad. Right? So there's never a like 100% good with no bad attached. So please, we're giving you this full out that every question we're going to ask, please understand, we're just looking for the best answer that you can give. And it doesn't have to be the perfect answer, because there's no perfect answer where it's all one-sided positive.
Yeah, it would be something like helping all children feel safe. Because I feel like things that happen early on in people's lives have a profound effect on them, whether they remember those things or not. So I would say somehow giving, and the way to make, children feel safe, or babies, would be just shelter and food and love, those, and physical touch. I think those would be the most important things that I would want all children, babies, and to have growing up.
I don't have my own kids. However, kids are a big part of my heart. And part of that is to make them feel they're valued and they're seen and they're heard and they're loved. And when you give that foundation for a kid to thrive in, where they feel safe, you'd be amazed at how they grow up to be confident and sure of themselves. They grow up to feel empowered that they can actually do something with their lives.
Right.
That kind of foundation.
Yes. And I agree with that. I think I had the same teacher from second through fourth grade, and she just instilled in me that I was like the best thing ever. And I cannot shake that feeling. Like, even if I like mess up a lot of stuff, or I just cannot drop the feeling that I'm a valued person in society, no matter like how much I mess up. And I think that, part of that is family, but I also think, part of that is my teacher. This is June Scott. So she's very, very influential in my life, I would say.
That's awesome. And just to have somebody who believes in you even before you believe in yourself is huge. It's like both of us, Dan and I, are both coaches, and even we champion our clients. We champion the people that we help because we see the greatness in them. We see that they're of value and they're worthy. And we want them to realize that if they don't see it themselves already, that we can bring out the best in them. We can bring that out of them.
Mm-hmm.
You step into your
Yeah.
greatness. My question was this, because of following up with Dan's question about the wish question. My question was, what is one superpower that you wish you had?
I sometimes have trouble with understanding another person's point of view. So I wanted to be able to shapeshift into another person, to feel what they felt like and why they were doing the things they did, chose how they chose. I have trouble like withholding judgment from other people, because I'm like, oh, I would never do that. What a terrible choice. But then I have to tell myself, well, given the person's background, the person's DNA, the way they were made, all their experiences, how do I know I wouldn't have chosen the same thing or done the same thing as them? So I think I'd like to kind of be in someone's shoes, not forever, but just enough to just have a little compassion and empathy for where they're coming from.
It seems to be that you have a strong sense of empathy. I can tell that already with the questions you've answered, which is amazing. If you could, this is one of my favorite movies, is Back to the Future. So if you could travel back in time and speak to your younger self and give them advice, like you could prepare them for the future in a way that you were unprepared for, what would you tell your younger self?
I would say, you're doing the right things. You're making the best choices you can with the information that you have. And I support you 100%. I just wanted to let you know from the future, you're fine. You're going to be fine. And the choices that you're making now have led me or you to become the person that I am at age 51. So keep on, you've made good choices. You're making good choices. Because I thought about other things, but I don't think I would listen to myself, because those same things that I would have said to myself, I heard it from people when I was that age too. So, and I didn't listen to them. So I don't know if I would, or if I would listen, I'd feel resentful or something, that I have to listen to my future self, but I know better. This is the answer. So I think even the mistakes that I made in the past were there for a reason.
That's a good way to be, actually, to have that attitude. Speaking of making mistakes, because we all do, what is one of your biggest failures and how did you overcome it? What did you learn from it?
Well, the thing that has kept me back the most, let's put it that way. And I can only see this in retrospect, of course. Thinking that a lot of things, well, the first is just thinking that I'm my thoughts and emotions, just being carried away with all my thoughts. And I think one of the best things that happened to me is that realizing that my mind or the things that go through my mind are like dreams. They're not even real. They're like video games. So I don't know if that's a mistake. I probably had to make mistakes to even get to that point. There's so many mistakes. I don't know where to begin, but they all led me to the right place at the end. It's not the end yet, but they've all led me to where I am right now, which is where I want to be.
In your profession, I'm sure you have so much experience, but you probably either not allowed or hesitant to share some of your experiences because you're not necessarily the person, the oncologist, doctor that's maybe working with them. But over time, I'm sure you've gained a lot of knowledge. But have you also heard stuff because they're probably talking to you and they're saying, "Oh, I heard this works or that works," and it's a recommendation that you now go, "That's a bad advice. Like, don't listen to that. It's bad advice." What's that you often hear?
Well, I always think there's hope no matter what situation a person's in. I would say what people do is assume that breast cancer is just one thing or one type of thing. It's actually many different types of breast cancer. So what people do is your average person, which is understandable, will, post on Facebook, call their aunt or their friend who they know who has a sister with breast cancer, and they take the individual experience of who they know to be correct in their situation. So, for example, they might say, "Oh, well, my friend's aunt got uh, this sort of drug, and I want that drug too." So, in chemotherapy, but the everyone's breast cancer is different, so you cannot really compare exactly one person with breast cancer to another person with breast cancer. And some people have their lymph nodes that are positive, some people don't, some people have only a small area affected, some people have a larger area. So it's really different. Breast cancers are it's a multitude of kind of diseases lumped under the umbrella of breast cancer. In terms of non-traditional therapies for breast cancer, the people who use that, it's okay. It's just as long as they can get traditional treatments if they want it. I think the hard thing for me to deal with is somebody who wants a treatment that I know doesn't work, and that's the treatment they want. That's hard for me. I think that's a hard situation for me, where they are very easily curable and they don't want that. And they want a different treatment that I know is not going to cure them of breast cancer. That's, I think, very hard.
Speaking of cancer, I can relate most about how my mom went through it because she had lung cancer.
Mm.
And just to see what it did to her and feeling on my side of things that I could only do so much just to be there to support her. It was heartbreaking to see someone go through such excruciating suffering and pain. And even with the chemo and the radiation, it's like I looking back, I wish I had acknowledged her more when she went through that because I know she was fighting for her life.
Mm-hmm.
I think she could have survived. So, but speaking of that, my question is, what habits or beliefs have shaped you to who you are today?
Being resilient has helped me a lot. There's also a negative part to that, like not learning from prior mistakes. But resiliency, makes me, I just keep trying. I'm curious about other people, why things that are the way they are. I'm curious about science, the world, just everything, everything, almost everything. So I think those are the qualities that have really helped me get to where I want to be. So it's just curiosity, resilience. Uh, I'm not afraid to fail, I would say. I'm okay. Like, I know that if I fail, it's not a reflection of me. It's just I tried and I failed. Like, it just happened. And I know that I have to. Might take many times of failing before giving up or getting what I wanted.
So imagine a family member or good friend of yours, you found out that they were sentenced to life in prison, and the warden told them, you can only bring one book with you that you're going to have the rest of your life. It's the only book you're going to be able to read. What book would you recommend that person brings, and why that book?
I would say the Bible. I don't see myself as like extremely religious, and I don't know if I even own a Bible, but I've read the Bible so many times. I think it has so much information in there that's, that's uplifting. I mean, even a person who doesn't believe in God I feel like would be helped by the words in a Bible. There's even the entertainment aspect. There are stories in there that sometimes have a moral meaning to it, and some of them, I don't know if they do or not. There's poetry. There's just it's just a written word that's interesting. So I mean, that's the only book that I could say that probably would entertain me or keep me busy over a long period of time, even beyond the religious aspect to it. I mean, the person doesn't even have to be religious. And if I didn't use the Bible, I'd use some other book from some other religion, probably, with stories and other things in it.
I agree with you about the Bible, not because I'm religious, but just that there's a lot of practical stories and that you can do everyday life.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
And you can go back to it again and again, and you can
Yes.
learn something new about
Right.
stories.
Yes.
How it applies at this time.
Yeah. It's just different like passages. And
what brings you the greatest joy?
I would say my family, of course. They, watching them, seeing them grow. You're like so close with with different types of people. I feel like almost everyone in my family is kind of a little bit different. So my oldest one is an artist. I didn't know what that was all about. I'm like a scientist. So, I see art like blossoming, and I see how it works. And it's just very interesting to me that, like, my child can reproduce something, just I don't know how it happens. And I'm like, other people can't do that. And they're like, it's so easy. And I realized that for people, sometimes when they excel at something, it doesn't take, in quotes, much work, because they love it and it's very natural to them. And I see how creativity works, which is just very interesting. That I would say, well, why don't you draw our dog? Well, they're so creative that they don't want to do that. They want to draw what they want to draw. That's something that's from their mind and not from someone else's mind. And they're very protective of their work. I just think that's just so interesting to me. And my other child loves horseback riding. And
so since this podcast is all about helping people live their best life, if you just had one piece of advice you could give them to help, I mean, you can think about your children as an example. If you could just give them one piece of advice that you knew would help them live their best life, what advice would you give them?
You're human. Everyone makes mistakes. Forgive yourself. Be truthful to yourself. Don't lie to yourself. Be compassionate with yourself first, and then you can be compassionate with other people. Don't judge yourself or others. There's so many. There's so many pieces of advice. Probably just start with those.
Those are foundational, wise advice to pass on to your kids, because when you think about everything you just shared, it's learning to accept who you are.
Right.
honestly, like
Right.
flaws and all. And some people, they don't even want to peek under the hood to see what they're really like. But when you do discover that, you can see, you can appreciate the humanity inside of you and appreciate in somebody else.
Yeah. Don't try to be anyone else. Love yourself first. Everything else will follow naturally.
Thank you so much. It was so wonderful to bring you on our podcast, Morlie. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me.